Hello, fellow heroes. I'm Action Smacchan, the 2-in-1 hero made up of a virus from the 70s and a guy who likes to play things. And I'm here with my pal,
Blue Infinity 22.
Insert name here. I hope that we never get that opening down correctly. I always need it to start with an awkward pause.
There's been exactly 2 out of the, what, like 5 times when you've introduced me yourself, so I never know what to expect.
I got to keep you on your toes, Blue.
Oh yeah, because I definitely was not.
Well, anyway, welcome everybody back to another episode of our little podcast about gaming and stuff, where I probably talk about Kirby's Dream Land 3 and also probably Blue Reflection. But anyway, let's start it off pretty much as we always started off. Blue, what have you been playing lately?
So actually, that Reverse 1999 game is celebrating its half anniversary soon, and so I was watching their hour-and-a-half live stream, and it's very impressive, some of the stuff that they pulled out. Like the animations are like beautiful, and they have like orchestras now, and just like, man, some of the events that are coming up is very exciting. And they did like a recap of like every storyline so far in like a kind of a quick little shot collage, and I was just like, man, just remembering back, like it's surprising it's only been 6 months, because yeah, watching it, you're just like, oh man, this feels like forever ago that I did that, and just remembering like the storylines, because a lot of twists happened and tragedies, and you're just like, wow.
All the years going by.
Yeah.
It's been 6 months, man. What do you mean 6 months? I lived like 5 lives.
Right? I was just, it feels like it's been so long already. So it starts, I want to say in like a week, but it's still like, I logged in and just started like playing a lot more and like kind of building units.
That's pretty cool. If it's having that much like production value in a 6-month anniversary, it means that's probably doing pretty well for itself. I
hope so.
I'm also seeing that they have been getting merch already. They had like at least one Nendoroid, I think, that I saw already, right?
Yeah, it's almost finished by Ami, I think, is doing it.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I only played a little bit of it, but it's a pretty neat little game.
You couldn't hear, you weren't even able to hear the voices.
I wasn't able to hear all of the voices. I don't know what's wrong with my sound settings or something. There's just like a sound layer that I cannot hear when I'm playing some games.
Did you ever get to go back and watch it?
I did end up listening to that
so
episode. I was like, oh my gosh, he was right. I am like...
just talking over them as they're talking. I thought it was on purpose. And just
it was not.
So I was like, this is great.
It's like, this is a good show.
But yeah, how about yourself? What are you playing?
Let's see here. I've been playing, I've been turning on this one called, it's, hold on, what's that title? Gensei Suikoden Plus. It is a JRPG, and it has Suikoden in the title, but it's not part of like the big Suikoden.
You know exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's not actually part of the Suikoden franchise. It's like kind of its own thing, and it seems to be like a modern port of something older. I'm not familiar with it, but it's kind of ridiculous. It has like, it doesn't take itself too seriously. Play as like these furry characters, and they're pretty funny.
Well, you lost me.
I was like, let me tell you what I'm not. But no, they're pretty entertaining. Like the kind of like the main-ish one. The story's pretty cool because it's very much a wuxia story, a martial arts story. So far there's like a conspiracy at like a martial arts tournament that the tiger guy is prepping himself for. And like the battle system is kind of interesting. You like take different martial arts stances, and that somehow affect. I didn't read the instructions, so I don't actually understand how it affects things. But you do have like different attacks that affect enemies differently. Like for the life of me, I was trying to fight like a snake, but the only thing that was working on it was a low kick.
Makes sense. It's low. It's on the floor, slithering around.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought I would be able to punch a snake, but hubris.
Yeah.
Punch it, throw it. I tried to punch it before, and I still have the teeth marks in my fist.
It's still there.
My hand's still numb. But yeah, it's like on sale, but it's only like 10% off. So I'm pretty sure future sales will have it lower. I guess it came out fairly recently. But the sprite work, I love the animations. Very charming.
That's a draw already. That's nice sprite work.
Yeah. Very charming. I wouldn't expect deep storytelling or deep characters because, like I said, it's very tongue-in-cheek, but it's a pretty cool wuxia story, I'd say. But yeah, I've been putting a little bit of time into that, and that's pretty much it so far.
Okay.
But yeah, with that out of the way, how about we go straight into our topic for today? With the resurgence of JRPGs in recent years, modern audiences are quickly learning that the genre that was a staple of hardcore gamers of the 90s is a hotbed of beautiful narratives led by some of gaming's most memorable characters. Among the full history of this still flourishing genre, who is your favorite main protagonist? How about you start us off, Blue, my dear friend?
Okay, do you want me to start with like my favorite or like I guess like number one JRPG protagonist at the start, or you want me to just kind of like work up to that?
Let's work up to it.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
I want something to look forward to later, other than late dinner.
Okay, so I guess I'll start with probably what people would probably consider the weakest one on my list, and one that tends to have a pretty negative reputation, but I would state a case for him.
Ooh, spicy take, let's go.
It's Tidus from Final Fantasy X.
Is that really that much of a hot take?
Yes.
I feel he's pretty likable, or maybe I just have bad taste according to the community.
Like I feel like he was pretty positively liked at launch, but lately he is pretty like trashed on a lot, and is often like used as examples for like annoying protagonists or whiny protagonists or terrible dubbing. And just like he's just like the poster child for that kind of thing. And I don't know if like I've seen some recent videos trying to like make a case for him, but I don't know if it necessarily is mainstream yet. But yeah, for like the last like decade, he's been pretty like trashed on.
Well, personally, I like the Teeds. I like Tidus. I thought he has a pretty good story.
Oh yeah, I liked him a lot more when his name was Titus. Because that's what I called him all the way up until they finally said his name in an official capacity. Because like it's actually when I found out, because they kind of did it very well. Where I didn't actually realize they never say his name in the actual game.
Yeah, they always just say like you. Yeah. Oh, hey, it's you.
Yeah, his name is never actually said, and I didn't connect that until I had to like double take when they said Tidus in Dissidia, Final Fantasy.
I think everybody that grew up with it had to do the double take.
Yeah, I just started laughing hysterically. But I guess I did the same thing with Zidane when I always called him Zidane. Yeah,
I remember in early childhood when I was dubbing it over with my brother when he was playing. We were definitely going Zidane, but Zidane.
My cousin always called him Zidane because she was very into French at the time. So like all the anime from there, like Code Lyoko and stuff like that. And I used to say Garnet as well, Princess Garnet, but she always said Garnet and Zidane.
Whoa, Garnet! French. She's taking it a step forward, or a step further. She's like, Zidane is not the only French boy. We also have his girlfriend, Daguerre. Garnet.
Freya. Yeah. So like all of the characters kind of have a French pronunciation.
I guess they could.
Yeah. So it was so it's kind of funny with that kind of thing. So yeah, just the city just kind of do it. But with Tidus, like I think that he was done actually extremely well, where like he didn't seem whiny to me like at all. Like he was as fish out of water as you possibly could be. Like and I don't want to like kind of like spoil like any of the thing after like the second half of the game, but like he his responses to stuff, his reactions to stuff, all of it was very realistic. Like you're like tossed into this world after like your entire life is just completely blown up, and you're in this culture that you have no idea about, and you're trying to learn what you can to try to figure out what's going on, to try to solve issues. And he has a very proactive personality type as well, where he will like jump in even though he doesn't know where he is, what's going on, but he sees someone in trouble and he will like jump in even when it's considered blaspheme. Like when he first really got to meet Yuna, he like dove right in when it was considered like a big taboo to do that. He was just like, screw your rules, like someone's in trouble and needs help and I'm going to go help, and he did that.
I do feel like they did a really good job like establishing his character right at the beginning. Like he's not super duper self-centered, even though he was a pretty big star in Xanarkin. Like he was really good to his fans.
Yeah, and he definitely did have that bit of cockiness and ego, which was absolutely necessary, because it's like I don't know how much of the game you remember, but like early on, you know, when Blitzball, when you were forced to play it, Waka actually was giving up. Like he was like completely beaten down by their being the worst team in the entire world, like every single year. And Tidus like is the reason why they didn't surrender and can get their first win before Waka retires permanently. And he has that confidence to bring people up. Like he's not so passive or like so egotistical he can't see and feel empathy. Like the most infamous scene that people mock relentlessly is that fake laughter scene.
I never understood why people make fun of it so much. Like it's supposed to sound over the top because he's not really trying to be convincingly laughing. It's like taken out of context, it looks ridiculous, which, you know, when you make memes, you take it out context. But in context, I always thought it was a really good scene.
Oh yeah, I think that it might just be because of how long it's been that people no longer know the origin of it anymore. Like their only experience or their first time seeing Tidus is that scene, or during the dub arguments that's usually what's used. Because the guy that voices Tidus is a very good voice actor. Like
James Arnold Taylor.
I didn't realize until like the last few years just how much stuff he's been in, which it's kind of crazy because like when I'm listening for it, like it's kind of similar to like Yuri Lowenthal, where you can easily tell it's him, but for some reason I couldn't back in the day. Like it never occurred to me like all the things he's in.
Like the funny thing is, like, he doesn't like change the timbre of his voice much, but like I was never able to like separate him from Tidus.
I can't either.
But he's definitely Johnny Test.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. And he's also Ratchet.
He also played on the Wii version of Klonoa. He's Klonoa.
I didn't know that either. Yeah, it's crazy. Like it's just how like it just shocked me. But yeah, that's the role that I imagine for him. Anytime that I hear him, and like the fake laughter scene is just another example of like his personality and how he has that empathy while still having that, you know, self-confidence where he doesn't mind embarrassing himself to help others or to protect others or to, you know, bring others up. He doesn't care about that kind of thing. Kind of like when he brings up Xanarkin, which is also like something you should never bring up, and he'll use that if needed to like bolster others. And that laugh scene is just a really good example where Yuna is feeling really down on herself. She's feeling dread. She's feeling scared. She's unsure what she's doing, or where she might go, or what. And it's also like, I believe before it's revealed that she knows where it's going to end, and he doesn't. And so he, you know, gives her that advice that it's like, it's okay to, if you ever feel down, then laughter is the best way to sort of come to boost yourself up, to hype yourself up, you know, kind of like the old in Ace Attorney, the "I'm fine" scream, where even when things look bleak, you have everyone against you, no one believes you, you have no evidence whatsoever. You just yell, "I'm fine," and things are going to work out. And so, like, he did that, and then Yuna even laughs with him, which is so funny that seems to get omitted. And then, like, right after they do the forced laughter, they break out in actual laughter.
Yeah, which people, you know, don't listen to.
And so, and the retainers, they're all looking like embarrassed as hell watching this shit.
They're cringing with us. They know that he was being cringy.
Yeah,
but it's like
they acknowledge
he's the exact cringe that Yuna needed at that time.
And I think it's just with Final Fantasy X, just that also goes with Tidus, where everyone just feels really human, and I think it's not acknowledged enough. I feel like in like an era where so many characters are very like larger than life or bombastic or very irony bro, or lots of like people call it like Marvel writing, with like everyone being a jokester, like no one can be serious at any point kind of thing. I think Final Fantasy X is a very good example of how characters can be very down to earth while still being having large personalities. Like, and so I think Tidus is a very solid character that, like, you'll notice that a lot of what I'm talking about Tidus, it tends to veer off into other aspects of the game, and that just, I feel like, highlights just how integral that he was to our connection to this world. And also, he's the first time that a time mage has a sword, so
that's true. But yeah, no, they do go out of their way to show us the depth of all these characters, and Tidus is like the first foray into it. And we definitely see just a lot of depth, just juxtaposing his actions that we see in the story with his narration. The way he narrates, the way he expresses his thoughts, that contrast with the bombastic way that he's behaving within the story that he's telling us. One of the parts that like stuck to me was like when Tidus is just kind of overwhelmed by everything he doesn't understand, and he's just running around screaming.
Yeah.
But like we do have the narration from him that juxtaposes with what we're seeing, but also giving us the what's going on in his mind when that's happening, that it's not just him being insane, it's him trying to cope with things and not knowing what's happening, because things are crazy. So I think
it's also nice that he's the only one that you hear the internal dialogue for, so it's like you hear how he's responding. So it's like he can get clearly lied to. He's like, oh yeah, no problem, I know that they're lying, but I don't really feel like I'm in a position that I can really say anything otherwise. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and strangely enough, we don't see that with a whole lot of games.
No,
A lot of game writing, so it's pretty specific to Final Fantasy X, and with how Tidus's character is handled. I might actually like a whole lot more JRPG protagonists if we did get that kind of rational side. The retrospection from some characters, because otherwise they are just your typical noisy shonen protag.
Yeah,
but which I don't really want to throw shade at, because those are some charming characters, but at the same time it's all like I do kind of want some more depth to the character, the more with how long we've kind of been fans of the media, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it also shows Final Fantasy X playing to trying to do one thing as well as it possibly can, instead of just like doing like a little bit of everything. Okay, where like having that one character that's our anchor point to this world, and having only his internal dialogue be given to us, and we're seeing the world through his eyes, makes that kind of an experience so much stronger. Whereas if we were to hear like everyone's internal dialogue, which we will often get in different genres and other games, where usually it's like an occasional internal, like maybe one or two dialogue boxes internally. This one, it gives us also that kind of mystery that comes from not really knowing what everyone's thinking. And so when Tidus feels embarrassed, we can better feel it with him, and it doesn't get like countered with someone, internally saying, I couldn't let him see me like that kind of thing. Where now you actually, you feel like you get to grow and know the characters as Tidus does.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think he's a very strong protagonist that I kind of hope that at least if those who really dislike him maybe might take a second look at some of his interactions, or like take another shot at his game and just kind of like really kind of see a little more of what he's about, or give it a chance if you've only seen like clips here and there. Because I think he's a lot stronger than people tend to give credit for, and he's pretty consistent throughout all of his later appearances as well.
Oh yeah, the quality of the writing, I feel like still matches in Dissidia. Generally, I think the writing in Dissidia is pretty baller. I love the writing in Dissidia. In some cases, I actually think the writing in Dissidia, for some characters, are actually better handled than in like their original titles, but that's just me.
Yeah, some characters. Yeah.
Some characters.
There's some that I feel like yeah, there's a lot very strong, but it's just like a couple of my favorites. I'm just like, oh. Yeah, I'll put them.
Maybe that's a reinterpretations could be a topic for a different day, possibly.
It's definitely not the majority, but it's just because it's like my favorite characters. I'm just like, oh.
No, I'm a little bit curious. I'm a little bit curious.
But I was actually thinking about coincidentally that exact topic today, and I'm wondering if it's not necessarily the characters that were my favorite were like butchered or changed, but they're actually more faithful to how they were in the Japanese original version, because a lot of the Final Fantasy games were pretty heavily like rewritten or changed for their original releases here. So I'm wondering if maybe the out of character stuff that I'm thinking of is actually more in character than I realize. So I kind of want to look into that.
Possibly. Like the pronunciation of Tidus is supposed to be more in line with his Japanese name relating to the sun, and apparently Tidus has something to do with the sun, as opposed to the
Tidus for the water that we usually
Tidus, which people just be like, oh well, he's a swimmy boy, of course, tides. But
so for me, it's just like that's like the box art, like that's just like it just always comes in my head, like him just in that water with his sword and
with wet pants.
Or when he instantly when his first experience in with the Aurochs.
But
like, hey, pass me the ball, and he just spikes it all the way through.
Arms crossed. How'd you like it?
I was like, I would have liked it better if you gave us our fucking ball, but I mean, but yeah, so that's my spiel for Titus, at least for now.
For now, we might return back to it, but no, I think Titus is a pretty awesome answer. Like for me, that's not even a hot take. I think he's actually one of the best protagonists in Final Fantasy, as far as I've played. I will go on record and say I have not played through 7 yet, or 12, or 14, or what else did I not touch? 15 or 16. So, but everything up to like up to 10, 10-2. I also played 13. I could talk about those, but I have my opinions of 13. But we're not.
I think mine's the hottest take for
it's
thinking
probably the hottest, spiciest take on 13 I've ever heard, probably. I wonder if we'll get to it one day. But I think I have my own spicy take for one of the most beloved franchises of longtime JRPG fans. What I mean is the Tales of series. I've been a Tales of fan for a pretty long time. I started my fandom back in Eternia on the PS1. But my favorite protagonist, and now I'll be honest and say that my favorite protagonist kind of swings between two. But the one that I am naming today as my favorite of the Tales of is actually Emile Castagnet in Tales of Symphonia, Dawn of a New World.
Wow, Emile, huh?
Yeah, Emile.
Yeah, that'll okay, so any of my hot takes aren't even going to be close to that one.
Maybe not. My favorite one is like the one from one of the most hated of the series.
It's not just the game is hated. Emile is easily the most hated character in the franchise for sure.
Possibly,
I don't
probably.
Yeah, I don't think anyone.
Ain't nobody saying this.
Yeah, like there's literally like 3-hour-long videos about how he's the worst character in all of Tales.
Well, dang. Tell me in the comments if you think I'm a doo-doo head. But I do like my Emile.
Like as soon as you said E, they just cut off.
I was like, first of all, these guys decide to start with
the
Titus.
only way he's doing this much prefacing is that he's about to say
he's about to say dang old Emile. But darn it, guys, you know what? For those who are still here, thank you. Also, let me tell you why I like my Emile.
The next day is going to be Smacchan just looking at front-facing the screen. I'm sorry.
That's just a thumbnail.
Yeah.
That's going to be the thumbnail for the next 5 videos. But no, I like my Emile. First of all, he is John Young-Bosch. He's my favorite actor. And not only is that, he's 2 John Young-Bosches in one. Because he also has his Radiata. But I really like his I like his character arc in that game, that story. First of all, the thing about Tales of Symphonia, Dawn of a World, I understand Dawn of a New World. I understand that if you are a huge fan of Lloyd and the boys, you could feel that you did not get the justice in that game. But as for like the game on its own, I like the new characters that they gave us. In my opinion, the relationship between Emile and Marta is one of the best romances in the Tales of series. Because it's always kind of not the biggest focus in the games. I mean, they're definitely present, and you could definitely have your own favorite ships, but the relationship between Emile and Marta is like one of the forefront things in that story, and I thought those two are dang old adorable together. My heart melts as soon as Marta hits us with the "if I'm in trouble again, will you come save me?" lines, and I'm like, yes, Marta, I will save you. But no, I love the character arc Emile goes through in trying to grow a pair, to be frank, because he does. And when he finally does it at the end of his arc, it's great, because the question of, does Marta like Emil for, you know, his actual self, or does she just like this version of him that she kind of imagined on her own with her own assumptions about him since the beginning of the game?
And that does come up.
Yep. It's satisfying to me that the feelings between them are legitimized, and the person that she needs him to be, he is already on his own. And I really like maybe it's just the trope that I like, but having like to deal with having your squishy, human-y, issue riddled self juxtaposed with the badass, cooler, edgier version of you. I know it's cool. It's a cool trope. I'm a big fan of Devilman. And it's a pretty similar thing. You have the soft-hearted Akira at the beginning of the series, and then he gets the devil in him. He gets Amon, or Ammon, however you want to pronounce it. And they become the Devil Man, the total badass, but you know, he's still the squishy Akira on the inside, deep down. But yeah, Emil, I love his reverse grip on the sword. I think it's really cool. You don't always get a main character doing the talon grip, but I always think it's cool.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And his mixture of like kind of martial arts kicking and with the reverse grip swordplay, I think is cool. And he does in his own right become on par with Lloyd Irving in terms of his own swordsmanship, which is pretty dang impressive in my book. But yeah, and it does give us a different viewpoint of Lloyd and his adventures in the world, because first off, like, maybe you're not even supposed to necessarily like Emil at the beginning of the game, because he's just first of all, he doesn't even like Lloyd. He demonizes Lloyd at the beginning of the game because he has his misconceptions about him. So, I don't know, kind of outcasting Emil the same way he's outcasted in his hometown. It's kind of just how it's supposed to be. But I don't know, I grew to love him. And I know it's a dang old spicy hot take, but gosh darn it, I like this. I like the growth of Emil Castagnier.
So I've recently gone back through Dawn of a New World, and I feel like it's one of the a lot of the issues that I feel when I at least that I noticed with the game comes from a lot of at things coming together, because for example, the Lloyd subplot with because everyone knows it's obviously not what really happened. That's just something that you already know right away that that's not what happened, but it's a great hook to kind of pull you in to see what they're going to do with it, where it's going to go, or how it's going to get resolved, or how it's going to affect the plot. And it certainly worked for me, especially it really worked well. And with people, how they see Emil, and so I've seen people who really get annoyed with the Marta and Emil romance. And I can kind of see where that might come from if, for example, if you view every single one of those skits, 90% of them are going to end up with Marta and Emil, Marta being hopelessly in love and Emil being hopelessly incompetent. 90% of them, because almost none of them relate to the main story in any way. And since it's the only, at least up to that point, it's the only Tales of game where they're voiced. I didn't realize none of the other Tales games had those scenes voiced, except for this one. So having it be put on that, I know there was a lot of Tales of fans who were actually pretty bitter about that that aspect of like, why is this getting the voice treatment from like these extremely well-known voice actors, and this is what it's being used on. And so I've seen people post about that quite a bit. And so when every one of them, especially in like a serious time, it's always going to end up with, Emil, you're so insensitive, and then it's like another misunderstanding kind of thing, and Emil go, what? I could see where some might get frustrated by that, where someone who might, only do a couple here and there, it really enhances the kind of adventure. And with Emil, it's very front-loaded with his personality being the meek individual. Because especially early on, they flash back to Richter's Courage is the Magic That Turns Dreams into Reality, I think like 9 times within 10 minutes. And I know some people that it drove them insane. And so like when I was like rewatching and replaying some of this, I feel like it's a lot of these small things that really pile on, where like if things were paced a little more, or the writing a little bit better, or the interactions placed a little smarter, that a lot of the issues that people might have, because I think it really compounds on each other, especially those who are huge fans of Symphonia, and then they also see their characters are out of character. Like one that I didn't know, because I never got that far in the first one, that it actually drove like to extreme anger is what's her name? It's the short white-haired lady who has the little brother.
Rain?
Yeah, her. So she actually doubts Lloyd for a bit in Dawn of the New World. And that actually got people so heated that they completely just ditched the game altogether. Because in the first one, she actually dies for Lloyd. That's how much that she trusted him. To such an extreme that she actually gave her life for Lloyd, and believing in him and what he can do and be capable of. And so the fact that she would actually believe that Lloyd is this evil person who would slaughter innocents was so out of character for some that it completely turned the rest of the game off for them. And so it's like all these like compounding little things for each individual that might see something a bit different or get affected differently, I think is where a lot of the issues for Dawn of the New World can come for people. Because I was like you, where I loved the romance, I loved the interactions, I loved the voice actors. But like I said earlier, where I didn't get that far I didn't get to like the last third of Tales of Symphonia. So a lot of the impact that a lot of other people had wasn't something that I had in my head. So like Colette's very ditziness to a flaw in Dawn of the New World, whereas in the first one, she didn't really have that extreme of a personality. To the fact where she was actually in a relationship with Lloyd.
No, she was pretty ditzy in the first game. She literally has holes in the wall that are from her.
Yeah. So those kinds of things, like I didn't find it to affect me as much as it did others, where I saw they very passionate, and it came from like a legitimate like source. Like it's not just people disliking it to dislike it. But yeah, for me, like I really enjoyed a lot of the aspects of it. I loved Emil's growth throughout it. I loved when he found out what he is. Ratatosk mode was a really good hook, and I really enjoyed that they used the same voice actor, and he was able to perform both roles completely convincingly. And yeah, and then with the gameplay, for some people not being their kind of thing, where the game focuses on aerial combos, but it has heavy super armor on everyone, that it can make it for a very frustrating game where random encounters can take a lot longer than they should. So just compounding it onto everything. I think I can see where the reputation for Emil comes from, but hopefully like people can kind of give it another shot where I guess it's kind of hard because with the pacing for it, where if someone really didn't like it, like saying, hey, skip some of the scenes.
Hey, it'll be great, just skip some of the game.
I'd really like to see like it, and I know they would never do it, but I'd really love to see them try to like tackle the game again, to really be able to knock out those kinks, pace it a bit better, give it a little more of a second draft kind of thing, because like there's so much here that's really good. Like Marta, her role as being like literally the daughter of like one of the big bads, like like she's such a compelling character, and she's always optimistic. And like one scene that always gets me is when Emil is just too afraid to do anything, and Marta's like doesn't want to force him because she sees how like panicked and like how much of an attack he's having and how scared he is, and she doesn't want him to be in any more trouble because of her, so she willingly surrenders herself. And then Tenebrae just looks at him and says, she's going to die. And he's like, what? It's like, yeah, they're going to go execute her. I hope you are okay with that kind of an ending. And then he just walks away, and Emil he steps up and he does something, because like he learns his inaction can cause suffering, and that's kind of like the first step in him starting his hero's journey. So, but there's a lot I think about him that it really does work, where especially like his motivation being the opposite of what everyone would accept. The hero is to him the most evil son of a bitch that's ever existed, and he sees literal statues built to Lloyd, which Lloyd would never be comfortable with, but people would do that, and it just adds to the effect, and adds to the misunderstanding, where it is not something Lloyd would really like. And Emil seeing it just to him says, look at how self-absorbed this murderer is, and I'm in this shit situation because of him. So yeah, like I think that I'm with you, where there was a lot that I really liked about Dawn of the New World, but I like being able to like look back, and I've I really kind of looked into before this kind of because I was thinking about like a Tales game, and so I just kind of like did another look into like people's responses, reactions, and I tried to like kind of filter out the clearly just like hating Dawn of the New World just on principle, and like actually look at what people were saying and thinking, and like there's a lot of legitimate reasons like why this game has the reputation it has, and I think with all the things piling onto each other, I can really see why. But it really is there really is a lot there that I really did enjoy, and I think their dynamic works really well, Marta and Emil.
Yeah, like I'm glad you're totally with me there, but like I said, it's not a perfect game. I could totally acknowledge a lot of its flaws.
That's not even acknowledging the ending. It's a whole other topic.
Like I said, I know the game has its flaws, especially put against Symphonia, which is one of the most highly regarded games of the series, to the point where it's the only older title that the Bamco wants to re-release multiple times. And yeah, I'm pretty with you there in that I wish they could like do another cut of the game where they clean up the flaws, and that's not about to happen because they don't even really want to release the rest of the series or Symphonia itself in a proper re-release.
I think the original version of Symphonia is still the best one to play, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
they're just so atrociously bad.
I heard that the recent one got some patches to make it better, but I think the more definitive way to play it is still
Yeah, dude.
the
Because it's also
GameCube.
the only one that's 60, right? Frames per second. I think it's the only one that's still 60.
Yeah, that might be the case. But then again, like I said, the recent one got some patches that might have fixed some of that.
Mm.
But yeah, this isn't about gameplay flaws or full story flaws or Lloyd Irving flaws. This is about how I feel about Emil. And I like his character growth. I like his Johnnies. I like his relationship with Marta. So one of my favorite JRPG protagonists is him. Beat me up if you want to, internet.
I just think his design is just really clean too. Like
the scarf is so cool, right?
His design is so clean. It just looks like his top was really weird to me when I first saw it. I was
It's like, whoa, shoulders. Hold on, what?
Yeah, but when I was playing and I'm like watching him, like it really worked for me. I thought it looked so cool.
Yeah, I think it looks cool. But yeah, what's your next RPG pro tag there, Blue?
So my favorite game of all time is The World Ends With You. And I think nekU is really, really good protagonist that we follow. His growth and character throughout the game feels really natural, to where like as the days go by in the game, like it feels so natural with like how he's talking, how he's interacting with people, what he's doing. But when you get to near the end and you think back to the beginning of the game, he's so radically different from then, and you don't even realize that because of how natural things go through the game. He's at the start, he's an amnesiac, so only his like character traits and what's natural to him comes through, unaffected by his experiences up to that point, or like his memories. But as he gets his memories back and his personality is then challenged and his perception of the world is challenged, he grows very naturally in a way that even he doesn't realize until it's over. Like one of his, like, I don't know if I would say famous lines, because it's one that just affects me, because I don't think anyone really quotes him, where he's like, I can't forgive you, but I trust you. Like it shows him opening up to people and accepting people for who they are. And the Japanese title of It's a Wonderful World really does reflect neku's journey, where he's very closed off, he's very pessimistic, he's very isolating. He doesn't trust people, he doesn't like people. Like he literally says, all the world needs is me, I have my values, so you guys can keep yours. So he's and so like the people that he interacts with challenge him in ways that he really needs. Like his first encounter with Shiki, the female lead, she's very brash, she's very outgoing, she's very fiery, and she's a go-getter. And nekU is the opposite of all of that. So she's the one that initiates their partnership through the start of the game. But it also turns out that she's fighting her own battles, where a lot of that is actually an act from her. She's trying to emulate someone that she respected and liked, and wanted to be like more than anything in the world, to a hostile degree even, which caused the problems that she's going through and the misunderstandings that she went through. And so she's trying to work to change that, because the game of The World Ends With You, it's a game of death. And in order to participate in this game of death, you have to sacrifice that which is most important to you. And it's not limited to physical belongings. it can be anything, even the abstract. For someone, it could be their memories. For someone, it could be their identity. For others, it can be physical. For others, it could be someone they love. It literally can be anything at all. And so the reason for that is to make someone really reflect on themselves, what they value and what they like. And so for nekU, it's something that is very personal to him, and something that it makes a lot of sense, which I think is one of the most amazing things with the game, is how it challenges you to think about yourself, to think about others, to really reflect on what makes someone human. And the game does phenomenal in that. And it kind of is similar with Tidus, where because nekU has amnesia when you start the game, he's also kind of a fish out of water, and you're learning about this predicament he's in with him at the same time. And he's also the only person, I believe, you get to see the internal monologue of. You might see one or two other characters, but it's usually in a context of a narrative. Because there's not a lot of characters that you do that to, but that's also because it's a gameplay feature where you can read people's minds anyway. It's he's an absolutely fantastic protagonist for me, where he really is someone that you can see a lot of yourself in, with how he goes through the game. Like, I played the game probably around the same age that he is in the game as well, and I've got to experience a lot of the stuff that he tends to focus on, for why he's so like isolating, why he kind of closes himself off. And so the situation that he's in, being able to where everything is really challenging him, forcing him to reevaluate himself, to gain empathy that he used to not have, where he would see somebody in trouble and he'd go, couldn't be me. like, it's really funny seeing it. And the game does like to poke fun at itself too, where there's a bonus what if scenario where everyone's basically a very exaggerated version of themselves, and it's a very funny comedy story that it really it likes to really like exaggerate some of his like character tropes, but it shows that there's an understanding there on how to portray him. And I really do like stories where the plot's not necessarily centered around the character, but everything in the plot that's there, you learn something about the character, or you get to see the character respond to something that challenges them. And I think The World Ends With You is one of, if not the best games that I've ever seen do that. I tend to want people to, if they haven't played it, to play it with as little knowledge as possible. It is a spoiler that it's a game of death, but it's one that I think you have to kind of accept when you're trying to like talk about the game at all. Like, I think that's the one that you have to, because it's actually played for a plot twist that it's a game of death.
Retroactively, this is a spoiler alert.
No, because like every review and even the back of the box kind of spoils that. So that's why when they played it as a twist, I was like, wait, what?
You guys are pretending it's a twist, like you didn't tell me
like
about
all
this.
like all this shit going on. We were just so, but yeah, like it's like I really do like the premise of the game. I really do like the reasons for the game. I really do like everything about it. It really is like my favorite game of all time, and I'm really glad that I played it, and that I own several copies of it.
Several copies.
It's just such a fantastic title, and I think neku is an amazing character. Every character in it's phenomenal, but I think he is definitely the only one that would do very well as the protagonist role, the one that we follow through the game. And you really feel what he's feeling. You see how things affect him, and everything is so tightly woven. There's no wasted dialogue. There's no wasted time. Everything has a purpose. Everything is there for a reason, and nothing overstays its welcome. And I think it's very strong.
Awesome. I actually have not gotten around to playing The World Ends With You, even though I do own like the original version on the DS. Just have not gotten around. Yeah. I mean, I'll definitely let you know as soon as I do, because, it is like your favorite game ever. So.
Like there is the Switch version, but I do think it's weaker than the original. But I mean, it's not like terrible. Like visually, it's a step up visually, because they do vector art instead of sprites that expand and get smaller with how it gets closer. So it can get kind of like muddy on the DS. But I think the gameplay works a lot better on the DS, and the soundtrack is better on the DS, I think.
I do remember it getting revered for it being like the best use of like the DS itself in the gameplay.
Yeah, it uses everything.
But yeah, neku, I bet you were hype as heck seeing him in Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a pretty cool choice, and I guess kind of going off on another game. On my next one, I am going to choose Ari from Okage Shadow King. This is a strange one because he is a silent protagonist, and it is kind of hard for me to be all like, so the silent protagonist is one of the greatest ever, because they tend to just kind of be self-insertions. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just a character for you to project yourself on. But in my opinion, Ari and Okage is actually kind of the most fascinating use of a silent protagonist in a JRPG, because there's such a self-awareness in that game that they kind of take advantage of. First of all, Okage, if you've never played it, has its own ridiculous sense of humor. That's just straight up my alley. So I have a huge affection for the game. It's just one of my favorite RPGs ever.
Check out
just
the
like
Action
definitely
Smacchan channel for a playthrough that was done.
Yeah, one of the first games I have ever streamed, if not the very first one that I streamed. Yeah. Definitely check that out on the main Action Smacchan channel, youtube.com/@ActionSmacchan. But yeah, first of all, his design, pretty killer. He looks like a punk rock version of the original Warrior of Light in like the original Final Fantasy. Warrior class warrior.
I'm looking at, there's a character he reminds me of, but I can't put my finger on it.
But like I said, he's a very interesting use of silent protagonist, because it's actually a character arc for him. I guess mild spoiler alert in case you decide to play the game yourself. But the game and his character arc is about him being so meek as a character, so voiceless, so lacking in personality, that he is overshadowed by his own shadow throughout the entire game. Granted, his shadow is a demon king, King Stan, who is just rich in ridiculous personality. And is an interesting character in himself. But I do like the character arc of Ari kind of finding his own individuality. in this game's very strange, pretty meta way. Again, I don't really want to give too much away because I feel like the twists in this game are pretty good, although a little bit simple. I don't know. There's like huger, more mind-boggling twists, but in JRPGs. But this one's pretty good in my opinion. So I don't want to tell you too much, especially with this game still being a bit of a hidden gem. I don't think it's still hugely renowned in the JRPG community, but it is pretty available because it's still like on the PSN, modern PSN, like on the PS4. You could get it on the PS4, or you could drop like $20 for a physical on the PS2. But yeah, I really like the character arc that they managed to give this silent protagonist that is special to this game. Special to this. It's not like a Dragon Quest game where it's kind of like, and you know, not throwing any shade at any Dragon Quest, because I actually freaking adore Dragon Quest. But you know, those games are, you know, are about protagonists made for you to project your own personality into, for the most part. But not everybody is necessarily Ari, who is overshadowed by their own shadow.
Yeah.
Not too much to say because, you know, Okage itself is a pretty short game. You could probably beat it in about 20 hours. But it's a kind of character arc that I tend to think about. Anything next for you, Blue?
So one of them that I was going to say is Ryudo from Grandia 2.
Ryudo, cool.
Yeah, like, so I don't know how different it is in the Japanese version, but in the English version, I really liked how down to earth he was in a world that isn't like, so the world of Grandia 2 is not pleasant. It's very people are very like scraping by. They rely on the church for basically everything, and the darkness of the world manifests itself in very bad ways, but the church does help a lot with trying to keep a lot of that out. Ryudo is a geohound, which is essentially a bounty hunter, but they will do other tasks that are needed of them, because being like a swordsman or being someone who can use magic or weapons is not something that is very widespread. Even looked down on in a lot of places because of how like dark the world is. A lot of them will have irrational biases or want to keep out people like that because they don't want them to bring even more like turmoil. Like if you're in a quiet village that's barely scraping by, the last thing you want is someone with all these weapons to come in and they essentially will take over your town. So they try to keep that kind of stuff out. And that's why the church is so big as it is. But Ryudo, he is a product of that world. He just goes job to job. He just, you know, survives. He hates the church. He hates people. He doesn't like this world, but he just does what he can to get through it. And a lot of that comes from his past. And he's very good at adapting to things because circumstances bring him to the church, and to the point that he's hired by them. And he is very fast at adapting to his situations and doing what he needs to do. And so despite him like absolutely detesting them, he still does his job and he does it well. The very beginning of the game, he's hired to escort a priestess to basically renew the seal on Satan himself. And so he goes in there and everyone's actually shocked that the I think he's the Pope. He might just be like the head priest there. Hired a geohound like Ryudo, and everyone like looks down on him for it, but he's like, we're sealing Satan again. I don't like what? Like I don't what? I don't give a shit. And so he's very nice to Ryudo, and Ryudo appreciates that and says, okay, I see somebody here, has some sort of like realistic expectations. And so the job does not go well. The demon parts of Satan do break out and spread out through the land, and the wings specifically get latched onto the priestess. And so she then becomes a Jekyll and Hyde kind of character, where she's herself, but when something occurs, she will transform into a darker demon version of herself, Millennia, who is one of my favorite characters in like all of JRPGs. She's such a fun character. She always steals the light whenever she's on the screen, and the way that she interacts with Ryudo is extremely entertaining. She always tries to flirt with him or get his guard down, and it never works. He's always able to do a quip like that just completely shuts her down, and it's always fun seeing his smartass to her smartass. It's so fun, and that's something that I like with Ryudo a lot. Is he's not a usual protagonist, at least not that I'd seen up to that point, where he's almost like an antagonist to this world, honestly. But he has a reason for his jadedness. He has a reason for his attitude. And his skill comes from a long time of him needing to have those skills. And I always like look forward to what he does next, and seeing this like down-to-earth character dealing with demons and like heaven and hell and church and theology, and he's just someone that doesn't even like believed in any of that. Seeing how he has to adapt his worldview, which is kind of like a running theme for like my favorite protagonist, Tidus, having to adapt and to have his worldviews challenged. nekU having to adapt and his worldviews challenged. Like protagonists that have to face something that really makes them have to reflect and change and improve themselves is something that really grips me. And so Ryudo, completely opposites of the priestess, and you now have to have the whole game together, it's endlessly funny. Someone who's very sheltered, is very clean. She's a hardcore church believer, and then you have this piece of shit. Like it's such a funny dynamic that it does not get old to me. And seeing both of them grow together and learning from each other, because she does get her entire worldview completely shattered, more so than he does, but him being so grounded is able to be that anchor that keeps her grounded as well. And so while she doesn't change completely as a person, she works to fix that brokenness of the world to try to make it better. And Ryudo is such a center point for everything that I really do like seeing him throughout the game. It's just a lot of fun, and I used to try to write stuff like stories, and he was one of the characters that I used to try to write in a lot of my stuff, because he really was a fun character that really stuck with me. Because like I said, he was very different from a lot of the heroes that I would see back in the day. Were very like optimistic, or very gung-ho, or silent protagonist, or usually someone who is clearly a hero, while this guy is nothing like it. He's like the opposite of what you would expect to be as a protagonist of a RPG. So it really was something that stuck out with me, and it stayed with me. I think he's a great character.
That's really interesting. So I haven't gotten quite to Grandia 2 yet, but I have played a pretty good chunk of Grandia 1.
We'll be talking about that.
I was like, oh, don't worry. We will talk about Grandia 1. But just on observation from what you talked about, interestingly, Grandia 1 is just the total opposite of 2.
It is like
just totally, because Grandia 1 it just has like this very optimistic, it's cool to go out as an adventurer, and that is totally what your life can be. It's very Saturday morning anime kind of feel. Especially with the main character Justin, he just sounds like the complete opposite of Ryudo. Mm-hmm. So really interesting, because I haven't delved much into Grandia 2, but I have heard some pretty good praise on Ryudo's character as well as the gameplay elements themselves. But that's some pretty interesting insight. Well, let's see here. As for me, I think the next one I want to talk about is my boy Asahi from Akiba's Beat.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Well, I'm gonna talk about what it is, but like just generally Akiba's Beat, when I was playing it, kind of rose very quickly into just, again, one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. Again, it is pretty similar in Okage in that just its sense of humor resonates with me a whole lot. It's not exactly like Okage's, but it's like it does a lot that just appeals to my ticklishness for for the humor. But Asahi, I think he's a fascinating main character, because again, he's not a self-insert character like you might see for a whole lot of sort of modern RPGs, because this game is a little Persona-like in that you kind of have like the real world and kind of like the seedy underbelly of the kind of another world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Asahi is a pretty particular character in himself. Also, you don't see a whole lot of JRPG protagonists that are straight up adults. He's 19. Part of his arc is that part of his character is that he's been skipping out on college. His best friend Mizuki wants him to get himself in gear, but he's just kind of in a rut. He's in a kind of an existential rut. He's in college, he's finished high school, but he doesn't really know what he wants to do with himself. So he's kind of just been in a way kind of running away from his troubles into Akiba. And again, the story of Akiba's Beat itself is kind of fascinating, because it is about everybody having their own idealized versions of the area of Akiba, and kind of exploring the different idealized versions of them and what people how people view it. But Asahi has a very general love for the area, so that's kind of his contributions to everybody going through their stories. Is he kind of just really loves the area, both what it was, what it is today, what it might be later. But he kind of doesn't have his very own idealized place, because he doesn't really have, because his existential crisis kind of puts his ideals kind of out of whack outside of Akiba. So I find that pretty fascinating. And Asahi, again, as a main character, I think is pretty fascinating, because he's kind of laid back. He's kind of laid back and a little bit apathetic to the idea of going out of his way to save people. even in spite of his general love for Akiba. He does get dragged into it by a more self-righteous character whom I eventually adored myself. In fact, I'd say that Akiba's beat generally has a very endearing cast. I pretty much like that entire party. But yeah, Asahi, laid back dude. He's not your usual noisy shonen protag. Yells a lot, hits people with the power of friendship. Yeah, Asahi's not really like that.
Not Ryudo either.
Yeah, it kind of like in the same vein of Ryudo, but he's not super cynical as Ryudo sounds to me.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, Ryudo is very cynical.
Because Asahi does have his pretty legitimate, just love for Akiba, but he is taking on too much escapism into it and his interests, to the point of that he is, kind of basically a neet.
Yeah.
So watching him grow out of that just through sheer love of Akiba and, getting his friends that he gets connections to through their combined love of Akiba. Yeah, very, very special story to me. Especially at the time I was playing it, I was kind of going through an existential crisis myself after I was playing it pretty much after my first layoff, which was out of the game industry. And I was all like, but I really want to go back into the game industry. And what do I have if I'm not working as a game developer? And I was, yeah, right. So like I was kind of forced into a situation where I have to go rediscover other parts of myself that I could apply to other places, other jobs, other, parts of myself. And I kind of saw myself in Asahi's character arc, I think, playing it at that part of my life. So, for a pretty long time, I was actually using Asahi as my PSN avatar.
Okay.
So I guess that's kind of to the extent that I really liked his character, what he's passionate about, him trying to find himself. It was really good. Funnily enough, I was playing it at the same time as Tokyo Xanadu, and Akiba's beat just kind of completely ruined Tokyo Xanadu for me, because the stories are pretty similar, but the characters in Akiba's beat are so much better in my opinion, man. Just like everybody in Tokyo Xanadu, just in comparison, is just so kind of just playing their tropes. I mean, they're doing it's still good. I've been trying to replay it lately a bit, and the character writing is still good, but Akiba's beat just kind of blew it out of the water, doing similar things, especially with the handling of the way the main character applies himself to the other characters in the cast. Their stance as kind of the hero of the story. I just like Asahi's way more. But yeah, this isn't about me comparing Akiba's beat to Tokyo Xanadu, even though I could probably do a whole lot of that. But Asahi's my boy. He's hilarious too. I'm not sure if I stated that, but Asahi himself, hilarious guy. But yeah, one of my favorite pro tags. Who do you have next, Blue?
Oh, actually, I guess as a heads up for Ryudo, if someone does play, he's voiced by the guy that voices adult Simba. I forgot his name.
Is that Matthew Broderick?
Yeah.
Really? He's Matthew Broderick?
Yeah.
No way!
People find it very unfitting. It grew on me a lot, and I can't really see him without it. But the voice acting in Grandia 2 is very cheesy. Like, it's very, like, of the time. So, and I know, like, there's a lot of people who dislike that, and a lot of people who really like that.
I'm one of the people that really like that.
Yeah,
like, I really love Grandia 1 for that.
Charming. Yeah, it's very charming, and it's... So I remember the... because when you said the power of friendship, it reminded me that, like, I was like, oh yeah, Ryudo kind of... He eventually kind of believes in that kind of thing, like, a little bit.
He believes in it more than Jesus.
Yeah, or like at the very least he'll be like, you know, he's like, yeah, you fucked with my friends, like that's not gonna happen. But then I remembered how funny it can be because it's voiced by and so like a bounty hunter with that voice can be kind of a little weird at first for people to get used to. But I wanted to bring that up in case someone that said that. It's like, what am I hearing a tragic backstory with him is very funny.
I actually straight up did not know that at all. That's fascinating.
Melphis, you will die for that.
But first, Hakuna Matata.
It's a... I can't see him with any other voice. It really is the voice for me, and he does very well, I think. But yeah, it is very cheesy, the voice acting. It's definitely a product of its time, so just kind of have that in there.
That is a fun fact. I had no idea. I like that I learned that. That tickles me.
For my next character, it's kind of become a bit of a hot take lately, at least from like the circles I've in. It's actually Sora from Kingdom Hearts. I think he's a phenomenal protagonist, and I think that he's actually had a very good showing in Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, so Sora kind of started to get a bit of a more negative reputation when 358 came out, because after 358 it was a lot of games without Sora. And so his absence, and people really, really connected with Roxas, really connected with like Terra Ventus Aqua, really connected with the other characters in the series, and even in Recoded, it's not actually Sora.
Data Sora.
Yeah, and then in 3D, people really didn't like Sora compared to Riku and the other characters in the game. They thought Sora wasn't really compelling or really annoying even.
Riku's one-liners were hilarious. I'm the thing that nightmares fear.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't pull that off. Riku though.
You're completely correct. And then in Kingdom Hearts 3, they kind of continued the 3D where Sora seems a little more childish than he used to. Because people really liked his Kingdom Hearts 2 showing. Like, that was Sora's peak to a lot of people. And it's the only time Sora acts as he did in Kingdom Hearts 2. And so, but that kind of plays into what I really liked about Sora, is that you grew up with him. So in Kingdom Hearts 1, he was very bright-eyed. He was very outgoing. He was very excited. He had tons of imagination. To the point that he stops in his tracks and he just like looks up and Goofy and I are like, what's going on? What are we doing? And he's like, I just can't believe that, like, I really just flew. Like, I can't wait to tell Kairi or tell Riku just to tell them what I got to experience. And I'm so excited to just tell them about my adventures that I got to do, or the experiences I got to do. And it was really like, I thought it was very charming. It was very like contagious. Like, when he would be excited, you would feel the same with him. When he was down, you'd feel for him. You'd really want to see him overcome what he's going through. And in Chain of Memories, it continues that, and you really get to see his enthusiasm and his heart, his kindness, his empathy come out with the Naminé stuff, where even though it's someone who completely tampered with his memories, erased his best friends from his memories, was basically this witch that just completely controlled him, he still held a hand out for her and still tried to help her and smiled the whole way through. And that's something that I really liked. And then in Kingdom Hearts 2, where people really liked him the most, because, you know, he was a lot more aggressive. He was a lot more quick to anger. He was a lot faster to pull his Keyblade and even threaten people. And with that, it was due to how much he was getting frustrated at how he could never seem to catch up to Riku or find Kairi. He was going at it for, at that point, a year and some change. Mm-hmm. And he still was not able to. Every time he would find a lead, he would lose it. Every time he would find them, they would be gone. He would even have to fight them once in a while. And he got really frustrated, and you could see that coming out, where he would constantly bicker a lot more than he used to. He would get angry faster. You would see that he would pull his Keyblade a lot more often to start a fight rather than the fight coming to him. And you could see that come to a head when he does eventually find Riku at the end, where he literally falls to his knees and starts crying. Mm-hmm. When he actually finds Riku, even though Riku is completely different than what he was. He gave into the darkness and lost who he was. Sora didn't care. He was still just so happy that he was able to find his friend that he had searched for so long for. And right after that, when he does finally find them and they go home together, you'll notice that's when the lot more happy-go-lucky Sora seems to return to the series, a lot more childish or a lot more bright-eyed, excited, and that personality is completely consistent. Like how he would see Naminé with a smile after all the things that she did to him. When Sora fails the Mark of Mastery exam and Riku passes, there's not a single bit of disappointment in Sora's face. He immediately jumps for joy that his friend passed the exam, that Riku has passed the Mark of Mastery. And Riku's character arc is a lot more obvious than Sora's, and that it's a lot more upfront. It's a lot more in your face. Like, you see him both physically and mentally struggle with his inner darkness that he completely succumbed to. Like, he is Sora has his Keyblade because of Riku's failure. And that's why Riku, he didn't have necessarily a Keyblade of his own. He had one that was made of darkness that wasn't really a part of himself until he eventually grew strong enough and the Keyblade came to him again. So with Sora, it's really nice seeing just the journey that he goes through. And in Kingdom Hearts 3, when he has to try to find this power that he doesn't even know where to begin with, and he's starting to have those self-doubts. He's starting to really struggle with his purpose and how to move forward for all of this pressure that's being placed on him. He asks for help. The first place he goes to is Hercules, and he asks for help. He says, hey, I'm lost and I don't even know where to begin. You were able to do this thing that I want to be able to do, and I don't even know where to begin. And it's something that I think is just very unique in a protagonist with Sora, and that a lot of people don't really like how childish that he appears, but I don't think it's necessarily just being childish. I think it's more being optimistic and able to it's that cheesy line, my friends are my power and I'm theirs. That's something that's very legitimate. The connections that he makes, he's entirely self-taught. He's the only Keyblader in the series that's self-taught, where he wasn't bestowed a Keyblade. He wasn't given it. Like that Keyblade he's holding is Riku's, and it stays with him just through the strength of his heart and his resolve. The reason it came to him is because Riku gave into the darkness. His heart was weaker, and so Sora wasn't ever chosen. He is entirely self-made through his connections, through his bonds, through his practice, through his adventures. And so I think that's like that there's something very magical about that kind of a protagonist. And he does have to reflect on himself a lot throughout it. Like he has to make a lot of decisions. He gives in to despair several times, and he has sacrificed himself multiple times, and he's never like ever expected anything for when he does a kind deed. It's like it's a bit more of the trope of the protagonist who always throws himself into danger or is way too optimistic for their own good, but I think it does a very good balance on like they punish him for it once in a while, the being way too optimistic, way too trusting, way too naive, but it's something that he doesn't let ruin his outlook. Like he just understands that there is limits to things, but he doesn't just let it completely alter how he views things, and I like that a lot. Like while Riku and Roxas may be like the more popular ones nowadays, just due to like many people like a redemption arc, both of them had to have big redemption arcs, and they've lost a lot, they've sacrificed a lot, and honestly Sora is only where he is because of them as well. Like Riku giving up, the reason why Riku looks the way he does in Kingdom Hearts 2 is for Sora's sake. But I think that Sora is very deserving of his protagonist role, and I know it's a much more common sentiment nowadays that they kind of wish that there was someone else for Kingdom Hearts 4, but I really do hope that they stay with Sora and that we get to continue the adventures with him, because we really did get to grow up with him. Like we started with him at 14 and now he's 17, and it's been very it's very noticeable, his progression throughout the series and his growth, his maturity. Like he still has that optimism, and it's just been really cool to see him grow, and I think he's a very strong protagonist.
I agree. Like with Kingdom Hearts specifically, honestly, I'd say he is the perfect protagonist for it. He has just enough optimism and magic to embody, the Disney magic, the fantasy of it. But also, he does go through the motions of having to grow, having to overcome, the darkest parts of the world. But he does shine through it. His faith in his friends and in the light, so to speak. I'd say he is the perfect protagonist to follow through all of these worlds, to see the fun parts of going through these worlds. You know what I mean?
Okay. It's also he's uniquely special in that him, along with Riku, changed the the perception that everyone in the series had of darkness being bad, light being good, and that Sora was willing to reach out a hand to those who were in darkness or those who dwell in darkness, while Riku being going the road to dawn, and showing that darkness can is not necessarily just all bad, which we of course learned why Terra became the way that he was, is that there was such a hardcore thought that any darkness is bad, and that's what kind of drove him to hate himself and fell into the hands of Xehanort. But Riku and Sora being so uniquely in that their perspectives of acceptance, of optimism, of empathy, that while Riku had to struggle with it in himself, Sora showed that there are there is other ways outside of just that kind of linear thinking.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And also, you pointing out the character arc that Sora went through between 1 and 2 does kind of shed some light in how the portrayal of Sora's lighthearted part of his personality shown in 3, because he is taken to goofy extremes, so to speak, with the way they write his humor. But at this part of his story, it's kind of like the first time since the first game where he is 100% just able to let that part of himself out. Yep,
because he's working together with Kairi training, Riku is with Mickey, and they're all together.
Everybody is okay.
Yeah.
And then when he finds out there are people that are not okay, he goes and he dunks, and Riku needs to press triangle to Sora. Yep. So honestly, when I first went through some of that, I was like, why is it like this? But with you sharing that perspective, it does make more sense. But even with more protagonists for the franchise now being there, I still say that Sora is like the perfect one for the job to be that guiding light, so to speak.
Yeah, for a long time back when I think it was like around Kingdom Hearts 2 and 358. I believe there was an interview with Nomura, and he had said that Sora was his favorite character that he's ever written for and made. I don't know if it's still that way now, since it's been like 15, 16 years, but I hope that it still is, and that there's still lots more that we'll get to go through with Sora. But I don't know, like, if franchise fatigue has really hit Nomura at this point. So I don't know if he's just like oh god, Sora again.
Oh, this guy again. That's an interesting tidbit, because he really likes his Aya Brea from Parasite Eve. Boy, he likes her.
I don't know if Sora still is nowadays, but back at the time, he did. I do believe I saw an interview where he said that Sora was his favorite.
Yeah, I mean, like, Kingdom Hearts was made after Parasite Eve, but he really likes his Aya Brea. If you ever seen like the pictures that the concept pictures that he's drawn for her, he likes that girl. She doesn't have clothes on. He draws Sora with clothes on.
That's true.
But Aya, no clothes on. But so who's your favorite? Anyway, but no, honestly, Sora did make my list. But yeah, you have made such a stronger case that I don't feel like I need to mention him. And it's funny because I do still have characters that I might say I like their character arcs more than Sora's. Like you said, Riku's kind of redemption arc, and owning his own powers, and it's a cool story. Even though my impulse first when it comes to Riku is to try to kick his ass, because
there's no way you're taking Kairi's heart.
Exactly. I feel like that's just a moment in gaming that if you know, you freaking know.
And there was no cutscene skip, so you got to see that every time.
I had to sit there for like 6 hours just getting my.
Yeah, we did. We absolutely did.
That's one
of those where you're just like, just kill me. You mess up. You sit there, hurry up and kill me so I can restart.
Yeah, but it's all like, okay, I messed up the first few seconds. I just end me, Riku. Just end me. Yeah. Stop messing around.
Yeah, you just sit there. All right, that's it.
And Roxas is pretty cool. Honestly, like the trio of Roxas, Xion, and Axel might be like my favorite, like Trinity.
Mm-hmm. Roxas is my favorite character in the series for sure.
Honestly, my favorite character might be either Riku or Xion. I adore Xion.
Oh yeah.
My feelings were hurt by her ending. In 358/2.
It's very strong. And so yeah, Kingdom Hearts is something that I always kind of nerd out over and like look at all the small details and could just go on for hours. So that's why like with Sora, I really wanted to make a case for him, because it really seems like his popularity is really dwindling, and people tend to have a negative opinion of him these days. And I just kind of wanted to make a case, like I think he's very strong, and that there's a lot to him that if people just like kind of take another look at, and that there's a reason why so many are drawn to him, and that he really is such a light on so many people.
A light. But yeah, Sora, that's a good kid. Now this is another strange one, because it's not a hugely popular series in America, and I'm kind of cheating because it's not necessarily actually a Japanese RPG, because it is a Chinese RPG.
Oh.
And I am talking about my boy Yue Jinzhao from Sword and Fairy 6. So here's my thing about Sword and Fairy 6. Do not play it on the PS4. That is exactly what build looks like when you hand it to a QA tester and nobody else has touched it before. So its polish makes Sonic 06 look fantastic. There is a Steam version that seems to be a whole lot more functional. But Sword and Fairy 6, this is the first.
The game has a really bad version. If like, all right, so my favorite character, don't play it on PS4.
Honestly, this is like one of my most conflicting playthroughs, because that was a busted up game build, boy.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the some of the like results, and yeah.
But like the thing that bothered me is that the characters, the story, and the music, some of the best I've ever experienced in an RPG.
I'm looking at so I pulled up the Wikipedia, and the very first sentence is The Legend of Sword and Fairy 6. It's the 8th installment.
Because there were like some main titles that had spin-offs.
No, I know. I had to like double take. Like,
listen, Kingdom Hearts fan, you're not allowed to talk.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 is the 9th game in the series. Yeah, go on.
But Sword and Fairy, made by Taiwanese developers for Chinese regions. So it's very popular there. Millions of fans. Has some of the most well-handled live-action television series that have actually made splashes in how TV adaptations for Chinese dramas just be. Fantastic. In fact, Sword and Fairy 6, last time I checked, they are working on a TV adaptation of that, so I'm actually hype as heck about that. But let me tell you about my boy Jinzhao. Going into it, let me tell you about how good this writing is. First of all, there's an argument on whether he's actually the main character, because the way this story is written is very wuxia, where it's kind of like Final Fantasy VI or something written by Quentin Tarantino, where you kind of have a bunch of different stories of different characters that convene into one. But the way Sword and Fairy 6's story is handled is that you actually start with a completely different character when you meet Jinzhao and Chi, the kind of the leading girl. But you meet them and you are fighting them and establishing just one of the core themes of Sword and Fairy 6 in that kind of moral alignment is something that can easily be shifted, because after fighting them right at the beginning of the game, they become the character that you initially play as. They become the greatest companions that character has basically ever had, because they're mostly companions basically from that point onward, and that's right at the beginning of the game. So you kind of have this expectation that starts that that the people you're fighting might become like your best friends later. I know that you kind of get that in a lot of like shonen anime. Oh, you got to beat them up first because they're your worst enemy. It's not exactly like that. It's more like kind of the internal struggle of light and dark is kind of a constantly moving thing. Kind of what matters is that you hold tight to your personal morals, and they do that throughout the game, to the point where sometimes you have to fight your friends, sometimes you don't. The guy that like roofied you the other day, you gotta fight with him. In fact, you have a lot to thank him for, just kind of for your life. Yeah, generally Sword and Fairy 6, one of the most beautiful stories I have experienced, despite the gameplay, despite the build being a horrible mess. But I powered through it because I think Jinzhao is cool. He's not at all like a shonen protagonist who's brash and loud. No, Jinzhao's actually, he might more pretend to be like that because he is a crafty man. And the people that know him well would be surprised if he ever does act legitimately like that without putting a whole lot of thought into something first. But yeah, Jinzhao, and his design's mega cool. Something about the kind of mixture of like modern punk, Chinese fantasy. The killer eye patch, which I'm really curious about because he does not have the eye patch in any of the footage of the live action version, but the eye patch is really important plot point. So I'm really curious why I haven't been seeing it with an eye patch when I would be looking at like behind the scenes stuff for the live action. I'm very excited for that. But my boy Jinzhao, love him. Also, he dual wields swords. You don't see that many dual wielding sword protagonists.
No,
but he also has like the opportunity to switch to like a two-hander. Pretty cool. I like him. A dang old lot. But like Sword and Fairy, it's a hard series to get into because most of the games were not in English. Sword and Fairy 6 was the first one to be in English. 7 works a whole lot better. It's on modern systems, but they do change the gameplay to a action RPG. And honestly, I haven't beaten it yet. I don't like the characters as much as I like Jinzhao and his friends, because I actually love them a lot. And I feel like the character work is as good as a Tales game.
Yeah, like looking at the responses, it's like every single one of these says that the only reason they're giving it any good rating is entirely the characters and story. Like every other aspect of this game is horrendous or performs awfully or don't play it even. But the plot and the story and the characters are so strong that it's so overwhelmingly good that they think it's completely worth trudging through.
Yeah, that's basically how I felt. I also think the music's really good. But if you want a better experience in trying Sword and Fairy, you could play Sword and Fairy 7. Available on all modern, except for Switch. It's not on Switch. That game will not function on the Switch. It's too AAA. But you can try Sword and Fairy 1, which is a classic in its own right. The characters and story, in a lot of ways, off the beaten path of what you'll see in like a JRPG. So just kind of at the core of the Sword and Fairy series, I think there's a whole lot of personality and just stuff you'll not see in anything else. If you're following JRPGs or the fandom that spawned from JRPGs. If you want something with a different flavor, try out Sword and Fairy.
Yeah, playing other cultures' games can really be an entirely unique experience. Like it even like goes into like every genre, like gacha games. Playing like a Japanese gacha versus a Chinese versus any other like culture, it's so widely different that it's really fun to try out. Because like, yeah, when you look at Sword and Fairy, it just looks so different from any of the other things that we've listed off so far.
Yeah. And, since trying Sword and Fairy 6 a couple of years ago, I've amassed a dang old collection of Sword and Fairy stuff.
Now it's swords and fairies.
So many swords and fairies and swords. 6 of them, 7 even.
Oh, apparently it's 8.
Anyway, Sword and Fairy, one of the greatest things to be janky that I love. But Jinzhao, dang cool main character. So cool that I would want to play a janky game again. But anyway, do you have another one, Blue?
I do. So I guess next I have Zidane from Final Fantasy IX.
Zidane!
He was honestly, up to a certain point, was my favorite protagonist in a role-playing game. He, like, I really liked like almost everything about him. His demeanor, his attitude, his way of like just living life, taking each day as it comes, his sarcasm, his smart ass responses. He was a thief, which I thought was like one of the coolest like classes for a while. Mm-hmm. He just his charisma, like he was just so compelling. And I don't know how much again of it is like was it Woolsey or the localizers who translated it, but like the way that his character was just so cool. And he had twin daggers.
The twin daggers were so cool.
Yeah, and like he could put them together to make a double-sided like staff. Because I believe his design was very heavily inspired by Wukong. Because he was I used to always think he was part cat, but he's part monkey. Strangely enough, the behaviors of like cat-ish characters and monkey-ish characters are kind of similar in like Japanese media. Like, yeah, for the longest time, I thought he was a cat boy. But yeah, no, he's not. I learned about it in Dissidia. Dissidia gave me a wake-up call for a lot of these characters.
You're like, hold on, he's a monkey?
Yeah.
It's pronounced Titus?
Yeah.
Zidane?
Bye-bye. No.
Oh my goodness. Bye.
Yeah, he's just really like his like bigger than life attitude was just it was so like alluring. Like I remember like when everything's like really fucked up and the princess gets kidnapped, then the Vivi gets captured. Like he has to team up with this really like head up his own ass knight, and their dynamic off of each other is so funny because he's like a proper knight, always by the rules, always his duty above all, and he's a good knight. Like he's very strong, but he just always gets outwitted by this conniving thief who doesn't have any care for the rules or how things are. He does things his own way, and their chemistry is just, it's always funny on the screen. And so like this giant monster has Vivi captured, and the knight's like, unhand him at once or else. And Zidane's just like, yeah, try that one more time. Maybe he didn't hear you. He's just like mocking him. It's like, yeah, just I'm sure he's going to do that. Yeah. And it's just been so funny. And like he's he again has, like, as the theme is, has his worldview really challenged with this princess, where it turns out this princess is a lot more than he can handle, because he's expecting like, and it's also like built up at the start, he like that they are expecting that this princess, you know, is just this royal brat, you know, just really spoiled, rotten. She's gonna be all like dainty and, you know, really annoying to deal with, or kind of like a child. But no, it turns out that she's quite the tomboy, and even like gives him a run for his money, where he's like trying to capture her, and she just like starts like using streamers as vines, and like while 3,000 feet in the air jumps off and like swings on it like a vine, and he's like, ah! Like you just see like the fear of God in his eyes as this woman jumps off. And so it really like, and that gets to him. He's like, he sees something in her after that, where, you know, this isn't just some like, you know, just dainty princess that is just part of the royal family, but this is someone that really captured his like eyes, and that he wants to, you know, talk to more. And she still is very naive and doesn't understand the outside world, and while this guy is just, you know, living, like has nowhere to really call home, and that he's always traveling, and his band of thieves are always trying to find something else, and just he's just so compelling as a character, and it's so fun watching him interact with people. And it jumps around characters, and you really feel his absence when he's not around. Like he's such a smart ass, but he is still very human. Like he does lose one of his best friends during the game, and you see it really affect him in his own way, where he's not just crying, but you see him like, you know, slam on a table, or you see him try to like bottle it up, or try to like hide, or trying to put the job first, but you see it really affect him. And it's really cool to see people dealing with grief in their own unique way. And like all these characters that we've talked about have a different way of dealing with grief when they have to deal with it. Like, you know, we already talked about Sora and how he had to deal with it in many different ways. Some of it through anger, some of it through backlash. Like when he got tricked by somebody for finding where Riku is, and he, you know, reacted in anger, or fell to his knees sobbing. But like Zidane had a similar, where he always deals with it differently, and it usually is very respective to where he's at or who he's around. And it's very human, because all of us will like show our vulnerabilities differently with who we're around, who we trust, or what we're doing. And it's just, he's such a fun character that like he was my favorite protagonist for a very long time. Because of that. And he's one of the characters that I felt was very butchered in Dissidia, and that they really destroyed his character, it felt like, and he was nothing like how you would expect him to act. His fighting style was dead on, like that was perfect, like oh my god, he was so fun. He is exactly how I expected. But yeah, like his like character traits were like, they seemed out of nowhere, and I don't know if it's actually more accurate, like he wasn't actually like the smart ass, but was actually kind of just like a generic kind of thief personality. But in Dissidia, that's kind of what they boiled him down to, was just like, I don't know if you know, but I'm a thief, you know. I'm like, who the fuck are you? He said that to Bart. Just like,
I actually really liked that they had Bart's and Zidane hanging out a lot in the first Dissidia.
Yeah, they definitely worked it very well. But it's just like, when I heard that, I was just like, what the fuck?
It's like, he would never say that. First of all, why would you tell someone that?
Yeah, like who knows? Maybe that, like I said, that it's a me thing, but yeah, like Zidane was just such a fun character.
One of my favorite scenes in Dissidia was Zidane and Bart's was like Bart's kind of telling him about Galuf, the old man. It's just ironic because other than Galuf, Bart's is hanging out with beautiful women.
Yeah.
Which Zidane would absolutely be jealous of.
Yeah, he's like, and like it also kind of introduced I don't know if they did it as often before, but they gave characters very unique skills that had their own unique names associated with them. Like Zidane had Protect Girls, and if any girl were to take lethal damage, he actually jumps in front of it and takes the hit himself, even though he's a thief class. So it's something that is actually very useful when the girls are mostly like mages, white mages, summoner. There is one that's a heavy knight that it doesn't come up very often, but it's still very useful. That it adds more to his personality because he is a womanizer, very much so, and does not hide it at all. Like, it was one of the reasons why they wanted to go for the princess as much as they did, because she's gorgeous and would fetch a very high price. And yeah, they're always at bars. They're always like it really felt like almost like a swashbuckling kind of crew. At the start, like they were very. It's such a strong start of Final Fantasy IX. Like the characters, they bounce off of each other. Their one-liners, their jokes, their camaraderie. Like you felt like you were part of the team. And Zidane had was so full of life. And so like throughout the game, I felt like he was pretty consistently written, and he did have a few things that really kind of like. He felt very real, like a guy that you would know, and how someone would actually react in that kind of environment. So, and that's also why Vivi kind of looked up to him as well, was that Vivi was like almost the opposite of Zidane. He was very reserved, very quiet. He also was very much of an outcast, but Zidane, while he was too, he almost wore it like a badge, and Vivi wanted to be more like Zidane. And it was very fun seeing them interact as well. So
Zidane had just a really good chemistry with every party member.
Yeah, his charisma was just off the charts. Like,
absolutely.
Everyone would talk to him. Even Steiner very much warmed up to him and even learned a bit from him. And some of like Steiner's best moments, which I won't spoil because they really deserve to be experienced if you haven't.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like and just seeing them become true comrades. It's such a strong game. I hear that they're going to be remaking Final Fantasy IX, and I'm both excited and worried if it does come, because a lot of Zidane's character is through that tight characterization, and I wonder if it'll be altered or changed, or if it will still come off the same way when presented in a different way.
Or if he will be a thief, you know.
Yeah, or if maybe like it turns out that he really was just completely rewritten for us, and like his original self is different, and they might be a bit more faithful to that. I'm not sure how it'll go, but I'll definitely pay attention to it. But yeah, the original one is still very strong, and I think it's worth like experiencing, or at least watching, because he's such a great character.
Yeah, I agree. I do have my own love for Zidane, because Final Fantasy IX was just generally fantastic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, kind of going right off of Zidane, voiced by Bryce Papenbrook in Final Fantasy Dissidia series. I will go with another Bryce Papenbrook role, In fact, the very first one that I've ever heard him in, at least the one that I recognized him for. And that is my boy, Jack Russell from Radiata Stories. Again, I'm choosing another title from just one of my favorite JRPGs of all time, Radiata Stories. Jack Russell is just, he's a funny guy. Again, like a lot of these games I'm striking up as, you know, one of my favorites ever. Just kind of has these sense of humors to him.
I love how in like all of the like images, his eyes just get bigger in every art that I see. Like,
he's kind of a wide-eyed guy, man.
Like each fan art has his eyes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, I wonder if it's like a running joke in the fandom.
Possibly.
Like, his eyes are almost as big as his head in this one. Yeah, he's got a great design.
Yeah, no, I love Jack. One of the coolest things about Radiata Stories is the fact that his outfits and his weapons, the models actually change when you switch out your equipment. Back then, you did not see that a whole lot.
No, it's, yeah.
Definitely see that a whole lot more now. Hello, Stellar Blade. But anyway, my boy Jack Russell, he's a guy that wanted to be a knight, but didn't necessarily play out for him the way he, you know, dreamed of it happening.
The helmets didn't have big enough eye sockets.
Just generally, that game had an interesting art style to it. I love a whole lot of the character designs. It's very Suikoden in that much of the appeal of Radiata Stories is that you can recruit a buckload of characters to join your team. But yeah, Jack, he's this very, I don't even know how to like articulate his personality. I almost want to say deadpan, but that's more his girlfriend's dynamic with him. But he is a pretty wide-eyed kind of guy trying to follow his dreams. But I guess it's just in that he does not take a whole lot of things very seriously. And I think that's part of his character arc, is that he doesn't take things seriously enough, even when it comes to kind of following his dreams. Until you get to like a particular crossroads when he does have to start committing to a whole lot of different things. And it's kind of one of the biggest choices I think I've ever had in a JRPG, because it gives you a binary decision to do one thing versus another. I don't want to spoil too much, but it drastically changes the story, which is really interesting. But yeah, Jack, he always wanted to follow in his father's footsteps in becoming a knight. It's just things did not play out the way he expected to. He's a hilarious guy. I love the way he just kind of not... It's like the little things with Jack. I think that's what it is. Like the way he moves and interacts with the world. He has like this weird walk. You know how in in games where you can walk by, like, you know, tilting the control stick a little bit and then you tilt it a little bit more to walk a little bit faster. That dang walk that he does when he's in the middle of running and walking. I heard people call it the Jack Russell hustle.
Jack Russell hustle.
It's one of the most hilarious animations I've ever seen in a video game. And you could bet that whenever I had the opportunity to do the Jack Russell hustle, I'd just be walking down the road doing it. But yeah, just the weird ways he interacts with the world, the way he knocks at doors. It's not like, you know, I'll tap on the door with my knuckle. No, he straight punches the door twice. And one of the ways you can interact with people in the environment is by giving it just a little kick. and it's like the most blunt little kick, like a dang old punt. You could kick people with it, and in some cases, that's how you recruit some people by kicking them a bunch, getting them to fight you. Radiata Stories, man, weird little game with its dang old weird old protagonist Jack Russell. Very charming.
Definitely memorable. Mm-hmm.
Very charming dude. I definitely need to play it again so I could give a better retrospective, but he's just one of those characters that kind of stuck with me since that first full playthrough. Just his bright-eyed personality. Well, I mean, like, he's not hugely he's just a quirky dude. I don't know how else to articulate. He's a quirky dude. And I think that's just the best word I have for him. But yeah, love Radiata Stories, and I love my boy Jack Russell. Who do you got next?
So this one's the last one I've written down.
Cool.
So this one's probably my favorite JRPG protagonist. Maybe not necessarily like by any real objective means, but in terms of like when I think of a good protagonist, or like the ideal protagonist for a JRPG in general, like this is who like immediately comes to mind, and we've already mentioned him, but it's Justin from Grandia.
Dang old Justin.
Yeah, like he just is exactly like what a like perfect RPG protagonist is. He's ambitious, he's very proactive, he's excited, he's like gets so much optimism and excitement that like literally the game opens up with him trying to just be an adventurer using a pot lid, a trash can lid, a spoon. And he's just like running around, and like I did that.
I remember that.
Yeah, like as a kid, like he was who I was just instantly connected with, because like I was like, I want to be an adventurer, I want to have these big, larger than life quests, like I'm gonna go out there and see the world, I'm gonna become something bigger than just what I am now. And like Justin just it like fits that so well, and it never really stops. He's always a go-getter, he's always looking for the next big thing, and he's kind of more of like an archaeologist by like throughout the game than like almost anything else. He's going through these like tunnels, these ancient civilizations, he's seeing this entire like civilization he's never even heard of, and like most don't even know exist. He's meeting fantastic creatures and characters, he's going around the world, and you see that as well because the map just expands. Even when you can't go back to a location, it's still there, like marked on your map as a place that you've explored and that you've looted, or you've looked at everything there, you've interacted, you've learned something. And it's just so like motivating and contagious, like his optimism and excitement. And he gets into a lot of really fucked up situations because of that like naivety of just like, and his like globetrotting. But I mean, that comes with, you know, the adventure, and you know, you'll laugh it off, or you'll grow from it, or you'll become you'll overcome it like whether out of necessity or out of cunning. And so like it's just, and his design is really funny too. He's got like that. He's got his iconic hat and shorts,
his dang mullet,
and bright red, the red slippers. and like all the characters in it are just completely like memorable. Like everyone makes an impact, and it has easily the cheesiest voice acting while still being able to border on, you would say it's good.
just edges on there. It's
yeah,
good.
like yeah, like it, probably people who weren't around back then, going back to listen to it now, would probably say it's awful. But I think it's so charming and has so much like life to it. Like, it really feels like people who are doing the voices do it out of a passion that they have, and like an actual like they like what they're doing and they have an investment in what they're trying to perform.
They're definitely like committed to these roles no matter what.
Yeah, they're not just doing it just because it's like where they ended up or where they're just doing it for, you know, like, oh, okay, my next job, let me just pump it out. Or like, it really feels like that they're not only having fun, but they're invested in the adventure with them. And like some of them don't do so well. Like, and the audio balancing can be very poor in a lot of it, where you can barely hear them because the music's so loud. But it is such a time capsule, and the game is so much fun, and the characters are so memorable that every moment is just so exciting, and you really feel the emotions that every character feels whenever it comes up. Like, Sue is such a fantastic character.
She is a cutie patootie.
It's just, I can't think of any other character like her. Like, I really cannot think of anyone that.
I don't think any other game can really pull off having Sue as a character.
Yeah. Like, she's so fun, and like it's in that era where people really pushed 3D, but they still kept sprites while having a 3D like map, and I think it works very well, and like the animations are very fluid and the visuals are beautiful. It's another one of those games though that you have to really look up how to play it at its best, because there's a lot of re-releases with very massively varying quality. And so like some of them with like the colors just awful, and some of them the performance terrible, but once you like look into it, like it's such a great game to play. And the protagonist really does bring the whole thing together, and he never loses that optimism, even when he has to make a very difficult decision, or he has to say goodbye to some people that, you know, he may never see again. But the adventure, the thrill of finding something new, looking for that new civilization, searching the world, globetrotting. Like I've never played any other RPG that felt like an actual adventure like this game pulls off. Like, it's just, you feel this huge world that's way bigger. It literally has an end of the world where the world ends, and it still feels bigger.
You get to the end, and yet it gets bigger.
Yeah, like they prove there's an end to the world if you go far enough. And they look at it. And it continues. It's such an incredible journey. And I can't think of any other game that matches it. And a large part of it is Justin's drive. Like, it is so contagious, and you just want to go along with him. And I really think he's such a great character. He doesn't have a lot of swears. He doesn't have a lot of like anti-hero stuff. He's very by the books, like optimistic protagonist, but it is how well it's executed, and like there's a reason why it was such a common thing, I feel like. And he's a good example of why it needs to be like experienced, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Justin's awesome. Like, he is kind of like Sora in that seeing the world through his perspective is just part of what makes the experience so magical.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I haven't gotten around to beating Grandia yet, but I've adored the parts of it that I played.
Yeah, it's very long.
It is longer than I expected it to be, honestly.
It's so long, it has multiple random battle themes that it has to change once you get far enough. Because they're like, yeah, you've probably heard this enough, let's go ahead and change it.
Yep. But yeah. And let me go and move on to my final. And this is one that you guys knew that you were going to hear, because I can't go an episode of this podcast series without talking about Kirby's Dream Man 3. It's Kirby, of course. No, I'm just kidding.
Kirby! Get that Kirby!
I'm going to take Kirby out of this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. What I actually mean is Blue Reflection.
Oh, you got us!
It's my girl Hinako Shirai. Oh my gosh, let me tell you about a girl that stole my heart right out of my chest. I absolutely love her character arc of just kind of becoming a hero, of having her own motives for becoming a magical girl. Because she had a dream that she lost, and she just saw this as a way, becoming a magical girl as a way to, try to get that back. But then she kind of eventually, from doing it enough, she does kind of find even more meaning in what she's doing. And she's pretty outcasted. People just see her as this uber famous dancing genius, ballet genius, and she has dedicated much of her life to just being the ballet genius. So she is pretty outcasted in that sense from normal high school girls, her peers. So much of her character arc is, and what she contributes to other characters in the narrative, is kind of an outside perspective of people's issues who are more in line with the normal high school student or high school girl relationship stuff, club stuff, trying to be better but not quite making it. And she offers a perspective of someone who is distant from the rest of societal norms. And also, in being that, she does actively try to understand what other people are going through. And I just love every bit of that. And every entry of Blue Reflection is just kind of something that progresses things established in this original game. Even when Hinako is not the main character anymore, they give you even more to love about her. And I love her design. She does manage to kind of just look like kind of an awkward, introverted girl if she's just standing there. But like if she gets into the zone or gets kind of lost in a whim of doing a ballet move that she's reminiscing about, she immediately adopts this sort of grace to her design. And of course there's her magical girl design, which looks fantastic. It's very star themed, it's very ballet themed. What you don't get immediately in the first game is how thematic the magical girl designs are, until you have a larger variety of magical girls in the second game, and also in the mobile game that I can't play because region stuff. Also the anime. But she is, her original dream was to be an étoile, a star of the ballet. And you see that resonate throughout her magical girl design. And just kind of the trials and tribulations of her understanding people better, trying to become a more normal girl, and just valuing new parts of her that she is not able to be anymore because she can't be, for certain reasons, she can't be the genius ballet dancer that she always dreamed of being. And again, I think it's kind of similar to what I was talking about with Asahi. where I do kind of project myself a little bit in Hinako's dilemmas in the first game, because I'm not necessarily always able to be the person in the game industry that I wanted to be, that I dreamed of growing up. I have to live a little bit harder. But it is something that she does accept about her life going forward, but she doesn't end up dropping the ideal either. Things are much more complex than that. So so many things that I love about Hinako. Granted, I do think that the main character of Blue Reflection Second Light is also fantastic. I think it's just Hinako, man, stole my heart.
Of course.
So that's why I want to leave her kind of at the top of the list right now. But I'm glad that we were able to actually get through all that. That was a marathon of wonderful characters and talking about just sharing our deepest thoughts about what we love about some of these games that we kind of grew up on, or the ones that grew on us. But we should go ahead and head into the resolution of the episode. Blue, where can we find you if we need more Blue Infinity in our lives?
I stream on Twitch and YouTube at Blue Infinity 22.
Nice. Good thing I follow you there as well. Also, if you want more Action Smacchan, you could Action Smack that subscribe button on the Pixel Smacchan channel. If you want more Action Smacchan in your life beyond that, you can go to the Action Smacchan main channel at youtube.com/@Action Smacchan. I'm also hanging out on Twitter for the most part at Action Smacchan, also on Instagram, which is also at Action Smacchan. And with that, thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you in the next Smacchan Pact adventure.
時を超えて大きな